Hey everyone, welcome in. Today we're doing a deep dive into something you probably interact with every single day, but maybe haven't given a ton of thought to.
Well, unless you're in the packaging industry, right?
Uh-huh, exactly. But even if you're not, this is going to be fascinating, I promise. We're talking about composite cans.
Yeah. Those lightweight, often cardboard-looking containers you see holding everything from snacks to spices.
That's the one. And we've got a seriously in-depth report here that's going to help us understand this market, like inside and out. Where it's at today, the forces shaping its future, and where it's likely headed.
Sounds like a plan. I'm always up for digging into market trends.
So let's jump right into the big picture. The global composite cans market is projected to reach a value of, get this, USD 540 million by 2025.
$5.24 billion. That's a pretty substantial chunk of change.
Oh, it absolutely is. And what's even more interesting is this growth is being driven by a couple of factors that are really gaining momentum across many industries: sustainability and cost effectiveness.
Right, composite cans are kind of hitting that sweet spot, aren't they? They're often seen as a more eco-friendly option compared to traditional metal cans or some plastic packaging, and they can also be quite efficient to produce and transport.
Exactly. And this isn't a one-off blip. The projections show this growth continuing steadily, with the market expected to climb all the way to USD 700 and 624.68 million by 2033.
So we're looking at a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of 4.80% from 2025 to 2033. That indicates pretty consistent, healthy growth over the next decade.
Now, this report does a really great job of laying out the timeline and the data that's informing these figures. They use 2024 as the base year and draw on historical data from 2021 to 2024 to build these projections. So we have the estimated market size for 2025 and then the forecast stretching all the way out to 2033.
Yeah, it's really important to have that historical context. It helps us understand how this market has been evolving and gives us more confidence in these projections.
So, with that big picture in mind, let's zoom in a bit and look at how this market breaks down regionally, because there are some really interesting differences and dynamics going on around the world.
Yeah, the global picture only tells part of the story.
Right. So, starting with North America, it turns out they're holding the largest share of this market, over 40% of the global revenue.
Not a huge surprise, really. North America's got a pretty robust economy, a large consumer market, and a well-developed packaging industry.
That tracks. And by 2025, North America's composite can market is projected to be worth around USD 1938.80 million, with a steady CAGR of 3.3% from 2025 to 2033.
So steady, consistent growth in that region.
Yeah. And within North America, the United States is the dominant force, of course. The report gives us estimates for 2025. The US at USD 129.71 million, Canada at USD 232.66 million, and Mexico at USD 176.43 million.
Makes sense. The U.S. is a massive market for just about everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, what's driving this North American dominance? The report points to a couple of key factors. A strong and still growing food and beverage sector, which relies heavily on packaging like composite cans. And then there's the rising demand from both consumers and businesses for sustainable packaging solutions.
Yeah, that sustainability angle is becoming more and more prominent. Consumers are becoming much more aware of the environmental impact of their choices, and companies are having to respond to that shift.
Totally. Now, hopping across the Atlantic, we've got Europe, another major player in this market.
Absolutely. Europe holds over 30% of the global composite cans market share. Their projected market size for 2025 is USD 1519.60 million, and they're anticipating a CAGR of 3.9% through 2033.
So slightly faster growth projected for Europe compared to North America. And the report gets really granular here, providing data for a whole bunch of individual European countries. The UK, France, Germany, Italy, Russia, Spain, even smaller nations like Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland.
Wow, that's pretty detailed. I'm curious, are there any notable differences between those individual countries?
There are definitely some variations in the projected growth rates. Some countries are a bit faster, others a bit slower, but overall, Europe is showing a pretty consistent upward trend.
So what's the story in Europe? What's pushing this growth?
One of the big drivers in Europe, and this is where it diverges a bit from North America, is the EU's pretty strict environmental regulations.
Oh yeah, the EU is definitely a leader when it comes to environmental policy.
For sure. And those regulations are really pushing industries to adopt eco-friendly packaging solutions. On top of that, you've got a very environmentally conscious consumer base in many European countries, so there's a strong demand-side pull for sustainable options as well.
So it's a combination of regulatory pressures and consumer preferences that's fueling the composite cans market in Europe.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears and head over to the region that's generating a lot of buzz in terms of growth potential, Asia Pacific or APAC.
Ah, yes, APAC. Always a hotbed of activity and expansion.
It really is. While APAC currently holds around 23% of the global market, with a size of USD 157.60 million projected for 2025, they're expected to see the most rapid growth in the coming years.
How rapid are we talking?
The report forecasts a CGR of 7.5% for APAC between 2025 and 2033.
Wow, that's significantly higher than North America or Europe.
It is, and they highlight China, Japan, South Korea, India, Australia, and Southeast Asia as the key drivers of this surge. Each of those markets has some pretty impressive figures on its own. India, in particular, is projected to see a whopping CGR of 9.4%.
India's got a massive population and a rapidly developing economy. That kind of growth rate makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Now, what's really interesting about APAC's growth story is the combination of factors at play. You've got rising environmental awareness among consumers, similar to what we're seeing in other parts of the world. But on top of that, governments across the region are enacting regulations and incentives to promote sustainable packaging.
So a bit of a push and pull effect there?
Yeah, exactly. And then you add in the explosion of e-commerce in many APAC countries, which creates a huge demand for effective and increasingly sustainable packaging solutions. It's like a perfect storm for market expansion.
Makes sense. When you've got that kind of confluence of factors, rapid growth is almost inevitable.
Now, let's move on to South America. It represents a smaller slice of the global pie, but it's still got its own growth narrative worth exploring.
Right. South America is always an interesting region to watch. Lots of potential there.
Definitely. They account for a little over 5% of the global composite can market, with a projected market size of USD 199.12 million in 2025 and a CAGR of 5.5% through 2033.
So solid growth, though not quite at the pace of APAC.
Right. Within South America, Brazil and Argentina are the leaders, followed by Colombia, Peru, and Chile. All of them are showing healthy growth in this sector.
What are the primary drivers in South America?
Well, it seems to be a similar story to what we're seeing globally. A rising demand for sustainable packaging, coupled with a growing food and beverage industry in the region.
It's interesting how those themes are playing out across different continents.
It really is. Now, the Middle East and Africa currently make up smaller portions of the global composite cans market, but they have their own distinct dynamics as well.
Makes sense. Every region's got its own unique set of circumstances.
For sure. The Middle East holds about 2% of the global revenue, with a market size of USD 209.60 million anticipated in 2025, and a projected CAGR of 6.1%.
Okay, so slightly faster growth than South America. And what about Africa?
Africa is currently at about 1% of global revenue, with a 2025 market size of USD 115.28 million. They're forecasted to grow at a CAGR of 5.1%.
Got it. What's driving those growth projections in those regions?
In the Middle East, the report points to rapid urbanization and rising disposable incomes as key factors. As more people move to cities and have more spending power, the demand for consumer goods, including those packaged in composite cans, tends to increase.
Makes sense. It's a classic pattern of economic development.
Exactly. And in Africa, it seems the rising demand for convenient, prepackaged foods is a significant contributor to the composite cans market.
So different regions, different drivers, but all contributing to the global growth of this market.
Now, beyond those regional dynamics, the report also breaks down the composite cans market by several other segments, which gives us even more insight into the nuances of this industry.
Okay, let's dig into those segments. What's the first one?
First up, can diameter. It turns out that the 50 millimeter to 100 millimeter diameter range is currently the dominant segment in the market.
So those are your kind of medium-sized cans, right?
Yeah, think of the cans you see holding things like powdered beverages, snacks, or some frozen food items.
Got it. That makes sense. Those sizes are pretty versatile. But is that where the most growth is happening?
Actually, no. The fastest growing segment is the less than 50 millimeter category.
Interesting. So smaller cans are taking off? Why is that?
It's very much tied to the sustainability push. Smaller composite cans are increasingly being used as an alternative to things like single-use plastic containers for smaller portions or individual servings. It's a way to reduce material usage and waste.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense. Sustainability driving innovation. What's the next segment?
Closure types. How those cans are sealed. According to the report, caps currently have the largest market share.
I guess that makes sense. Caps are pretty standard and work well for a variety of products.
Yeah, and they're often seen as a more sustainable and lightweight option compared to some other closure types.
What about the fastest growing segment in closure types?
Lids are seeing the most rapid growth. Again, it comes down to sustainability. Lidded composite cans can be easier to recycle in some cases, and they're becoming increasingly popular in the food and beverage industry, where they offer good product protection and convenience for consumers.
Okay, so caps are the leader, lids are the up-and-comer. What's next?
Let's talk about how these cans are actually made, the production methods. The report says that convolute winding is the most widely used method right now.
Convolute winding. I'm not familiar with that one. What does it involve?
Essentially, it's a process where multiple layers of material are wound together to form the can body. It's very efficient and can create a can that's both strong and lightweight.
Ah, got it. And is that the fastest growing production method as well?
Actually, the fastest growth is happening in the spiral winding segment. This method is known for being really cost-effective and environmentally friendly, and it produces a can that's very durable and recyclable.
Okay, so spiral winding is gaining ground. The report also mentioned linear draw as a production method, right?
Yeah, it did, but it didn't go into specifics about its growth rate. Now, last but not least, we need to talk about end-use sectors. Where are all these composite cans actually being used?
Right, that's the ultimate test of a market. Where's the demand coming from?
Exactly. So, unsurprisingly, the food and beverage sector is the largest consumer of composite cans.
That makes perfect sense. We see composite cans on grocery shelves all the time.
And there are a few reasons for this dominance. Composite cans are great for preserving food, they're lightweight and cost-effective to transport, and they can be designed to be very eye-catching on shelves.
So they tick a lot of boxes for food and beverage companies. What about the fastest growing end-use segment?
That would be consumer goods. We're talking about things like personal care items, household products, even some electronics.
Interesting. So composite cans are expanding beyond just food and drinks.
Definitely. They're becoming increasingly popular for a wide range of consumer products driven by those same factors: sustainability, convenience, and the ability to create attractive packaging. The report also mentions other end-use segments like agriculture, textiles and apparels, personal care and cosmetics, and industrial goods, showing there's a pretty diverse range of applications for composite can technology.
So we've got a pretty good overview of the market size, the regional dynamics, and how it breaks down by different segments. Now, I'm curious, what are the key factors driving this growth forward? What's making composite cans so popular?
The report digs into that, and it identifies a few major market drivers. First and foremost, there's a growing awareness among both businesses and consumers of the environmental benefits of composite cans. They're often seen as a more sustainable option compared to traditional metal cans or plastic packaging.
Yeah, that sustainability angle is a big one.
It really is. Another driver is the increasing need for heat-resistant composite cans. Certain products require packaging that can withstand higher temperatures, and composite cans are becoming a viable solution in those cases.
Interesting. So not just eco-friendly, but also durable.
And the third driver is innovation. Ongoing advancements in composite can manufacturing technology are making them even more versatile, durable, and appealing for a wider range of uses.
So it's a combination of environmental benefits, performance improvements, and technological innovation. Sounds like a winning formula.
Absolutely. But of course, no market grows without facing some challenges. So what are some of the restraints on the expansion of the composite cans market?
Right. Every market has its headwinds. What does the report say?
The report highlights two key challenges. First, there's the perception among some buyers that composite cans are more expensive than alternative packaging options.
That's interesting. I wonder if that perception is always accurate.
It's a good point. It might not always be a straightforward cost comparison. You have to factor in things like the environmental impact, transportation costs, and the overall value proposition of the packaging.
Right. It's not just about the upfront price tag. What's the other restraint?
Competition from other packaging materials. Traditional players like plastics and metals are well established and constantly innovating as well. They have extensive supply chains and a wide range of existing applications.
So composite cans have to carve out their niche and prove their value against some tough competition.
Exactly. Now, looking ahead, what are some of the major trends that are likely to shape the future of this market?
What does the crystal ball say?
Well, two trends really jump out. The first is, and we've talked about this quite a bit, the continuing global push for sustainable packaging. That's a huge trend that's only going to intensify, and it plays right into the strengths of composite cans.
For sure. Sustainability is not going away. What's the second trend?
A growing demand for lightweight packaging. This is driven by several factors, including rising transportation costs and a desire to reduce the environmental impact of shipping.
Ah, yes. Lightweighting. It makes sense both economically and environmentally.
Exactly. Now, finally, the report gives us a glimpse into the competitive landscape of this market. Who are the big players?
Always good to know who the major players are in any industry.
Absolutely. The composite cans market is fairly competitive, with a mix of global companies and regional specialists. The report names Sunoco Products Company, Amcor Ltd., Smurfit Kappa, Mondi Group, Ace Paper Tube, and several others.
So a mix of familiar names and maybe some lesser-known companies as well.
And what strategies are these companies employing to stay ahead in this market?
The report highlights a few key strategies. They're focused on offering a wide range of products to cater to different needs, building strong distribution networks to reach their customers, and investing heavily in research and development to create new and improved composite can solutions. So it's all about staying innovative and responsive to the market's evolving demands.
Exactly. So if we take a step back and look at everything we've covered, it's pretty clear that the global composite cans market is in a strong position for continued growth.
I'd agree with that. All signs point to a bright future for composite cans.
We're talking about reaching USD 500 and 240 million by 2025 and potentially hitting USD 700, 624.68 million by 2033. And those are just the global figures. Remember, APAC in particular is projected to see some very impressive growth.
It's a really fascinating example of how global trends, technological advancements, and regional dynamics all converge to shape a market.
It really is, and it makes you think about that humble composite can in a whole new light.
It does. It's a reminder that even everyday objects have these complex stories behind them, and those stories are often deeply intertwined with the bigger picture of global trends and technological innovation.
This has been a really insightful dive into the world of composite cans. Thanks for joining me for this exploration.
My pleasure. Always great to unpack these kind of market trends and see where things are headed.
And for all of you listening out there, here's a final thought to consider. Given this global shift towards sustainable packaging, how might composite cans continue to evolve and potentially disrupt even more traditional packaging methods in the years to come? Food for thought. Thanks for tuning in.